Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, let's just get right into the talk. So, before I like introduce myself, I just want to get a concept across. So, when we think of like the world and the way like things are evolving and the way change like continues to be a part of human nature and everything that we do, we can see that like change sometimes brings out the best in us and sometimes it turns like some other concepts into like different concepts and then makes us question everything that we know, especially in like being a software engineer or a developer, like in the field that we are in. We see a lot of like making out specific parts out of like complex characteristics that we just want to like get. So for example, instead of defining things as like a person, you want to call it a name and know it by that name. So today I'm going to be talking about how everything should be as simple as it is. And let me get the boring stuff out of the way. My name is Obina Ekuno, and I am you can find me on Twitter as Obina Speaks. I'm a software engineer at Gatsby. I'm also a media developer expert for Cloudinary. I like to write technical articles and I preach about accessibility a lot. And also, like Baron said, making French toast is my superpower. I'll explain. But I want us to get an idea of where we started from. Um, we hear a lot about the Jamstack. I've listened to some of the talks, really brilliant and like highlighting a lot of like awesome features. But I want to take us back a bit to the Jamstacky way of doing things, like where we actually started from. So if you think about like when we used to like build stuff with like HTML, CSS, put some scripting in, and just tweak stuff as we go without like so much thoughts as to security and all of those things. Like if, for example, I read a blog post by Chris Sawyer where he's like, Koya, I think, where he's like, if you updated like a page every single day by just updating the HTML and say for example you had the local coffee shop and you're just updating this every single day, the menu every single day, then what you're doing is a Jamstack because you are updating something by yourself, low security costs. Like no one is like coming in to check what you're doing. It's HTML, so like it's like markdown that you're updating. So no serious problems. And this is like the Jamstacky way of doing things. But like fast forward a few years, and now we're in the new Jamstacky way of doing things, which is what we do today as building stuff with JavaScript APIs and Markdown. Now, again with the concept of change, as humans we poke at things, we keep poking at things and experimenting with things until we find all the answers we're looking for, and then we question everything that we know. And that's, I feel like this is like the best part of being a human being, because I mean we did this so much that we invented French toast. I mean, like in the 5th century, like somebody just decided that it was okay to add fruit to bread and make it beautiful. But I digress. We also did something really important by realizing that like the way we build websites, by isolating the clients and like connecting the clients to like web servers and app servers and databases, and every time something changed in one place, you would need to like rebuild everything again, wasn't really working. So we poked at it and poked at it until we got to the point where now we say, okay, cool. The client should stay on its own. It should interact with this using a CDN. I saw a really brilliant explanation of the CDN in the last talk, and I'm like, whoa, okay, this is nice. So it should update like all of these the changes that comes with on the CDN and then interact with services. And coupled with like the way the Git centered workflow and decoupled architecture really just helped to prove this. But then every time I see the Jamstack having to be proven every single time to like maybe a marketing team, for example. I sat in on the last conversation and it was like, oh, sometimes you need to explain to the marketers because they're like, our competitors are using this. Why should we do this? So there are always people that would say, I mean, what we have works for us. There's no need to stretch. But then when you bring out the the advantages of using the Jamstack, which is the fact that you have high security, your performance increases, And there's like a whole lot of like flexibility in the way that you build applications. But the truth is that as long as there are people that know what is, there will always be people that will question what can be. And yes, this is a quote from Endgame. Avengers the Endgame. Don't mind me. I have like a lot of cartoon references. I'm sorry. But then we as developers started to do this thing where we stopped thinking about the client and the servers and started thinking about the clients and the services. So we started connecting, okay, I want to build something. And then I want to, instead of having all my dependencies be like in servers or my servers, I want to have services and let someone else worry about this. Now, I want to tell you a story about the secret life of a front-end developer. Now, you have front-end developers, right? Like, we're chilling, building applications, making the web beautiful with HTML, CSS, normal skills, right? The normal skills. And then, doing our thing. And you have the back-end developers also doing their thing on their own scale, building their stuff like tough in the avatar, super cool. And then you have the full stack developers, the bridge, the merger of worlds, the avatars, right? Doing like their own thing, also understanding the front end and the back end and merging that together. And you would recall that like back in the day, if you told a front end developer to build a custom API or a database, manipulate like media on the fly and set up authentication, authorization, and handle form entries and deploy the full app, they'd be like, what? Are you are you talking to me? Because I mean, my skill, these things I've mentioned and my skill set don't really match, right? Because like there's a lot of, I mean, I do a lot of things, but like setting up all that, what? But then before I tell you like the other thing, I want to point out something. The part one of the secret life of the front-end developer is the line. What we see the Jamstack introducing is that the line between like the front end and the back end keeps getting blurry because the capabilities of a front end engineer with their own normal skill sets of HTML, CSS, and a bit of scripting and just pushing it a little bit further has made it seem as though everybody can be the avatar now. And then the part two, where we actually get the superpowers, is from APIs. The APIs that we already have, like services that already exist that we use and tweak in different parts of like the problems we're trying to solve, that gives us the superpowers. So problems like customizing an API can be solved by like having an API and customizing an API can be solved by a service like Asura. So you can actually set up your own database, excuse me, you can actually set up your own database and have like the information from that database queried into your application using GraphQL from an API. And all you did was just set up an API by looking at dashboards and putting your data in. You can also manipulate media on the fly by using services like Cloudinary, set up authentication with Auth0, handle file entries with Netlify functions, deploy Netlify. Like, so the point is like different services came up to give us different superpowers. But then what about the actual front end? This is all cool. I mean, I'm doing like more stuff, but like, what about the way I like to build stuff? No worries. The way you like to build stuff does not change. You build like, for example, I'm a JavaScript developer and I originally used to write React. But then you want to do like more stuff. You want to push like the things that you're doing to be more optimized. And then you start to listen, you start to look at like server-side rendered frameworks of what the framework that you already write. So for example, you can have like stuff like Next.js, you can have Eleventy, you can have Gatsby, and all of these, what they do is that they build your application, the front end that you've built, and all those services and all those APIs you've connected to. They do that. They do all of the hard work at build time and render static pages to your site. So you never have to worry about like, oh, all these things I'm putting into the site, is it going to slow down when it gets to the user? All of that goes to the user's HTML files, which gets hydrated in the browser. And then, all of the other fun stuff happens there. So you focus on like just building the thing the way you know how to build it. And this is the power of the Jamstack, the JavaScript, the API, the Markdown, it's like making French toast. Exactly. So this is what happens. You get the new front-end developer. developer that feels empowered to do more stuff and really just push the limits by thinking about, okay, I build this the front end as I want to build it, and there are a lot of other things I need to do, but then I have services that can help me. But then it's not a silver bullet, right? And this is like one of the quotes of all time. With great power comes great responsibility. And it's important to note that as much as you want to like push your limits a little further, there's also, you have to open up to like learning more stuff. So the learning curve, let's see what that means. So for example, if you think back to the first time you ever heard serverless, for example, like for me, I was like, okay, this is cool. No more servers. Carry the placards, walk on the streets, no more servers. But then you realize that this doesn't mean no more servers. It just means that, okay, don't worry about setting up these servers. Write the code you write the functions you want to be hosted on someone else's servers, and it will run every time somebody fires up this function. Every time somebody fires up whatever it is that's linked to this function. And we start to learn stuff about configuring like CMSs and GraphQL. Because I get the question a lot like, oh, why does Gatsby use GraphQL? And I'm like, okay, cool. Because we need to source data from like different CMSs and get that together. And like I said, do that at build time and render it to your file. So as a front-end developer, you might want to learn more stuff, a little bit, not too much. And there's also this common problem of like of being overwhelmed with like the problem even before you get to the bridge, because in your head you're like, okay, I know how to build this front end, but now I have to think about how to do this, how to do that, how to do this. Oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. But then you have to focus on the problem. So as you build, you focus on the problems that you're trying to solve. And part of like focusing on the problem is, okay, what tool can solve this particular problem that I'm facing? So for example, if you're bothered about, look, how in my experience, if you're bothered about like how, say for example, you want to like do more functionalities to your webpack bundling and all of that, there are static site generators or server side rendered frameworks that would help you like with additional APIs to be able to configure things as you grow. So you don't have to like get all the functionalities right before you start. As you grow, as the problems arise, you keep putting that up. But then there's another problem. Sometimes as we abstract, the chances of losing some context like increases. So I would say every time people like abstract or like start to use like a new framework or start to use like a new method, it kind of makes people wonder, how did we used to do these things? But Laurie says, please don't over abstract, like do things as you need them. The gist of this tweet is just to abstract as you need to, not before you do. And if there are more questions than answers with the processes that you've chosen to use, then maybe it's time to like sit down and actually just test the stuff that you're doing, like test it out, right? Try and like figure out why am I choosing like this service? Why am I choosing this method of doing things? And as you do so, you build with with the things, measure, learn from what you've done, fix. So take it like step by step instead of just like diving into it and being so excited about all the tools that you're seeing. And yeah, that's about it for my talk and the secret life of a front-end developer. May the force be with you.
That was great, Obina. I think so much of what you said kind of resonated with me. One of the things that I'm curious about is, um, you know, I'd say that Jamstack is not typically portrayed as the simpler solution, right? Like it's often criticized as being overly complicated, um, like with dependencies and third-party services. I mean, so what is it that you feel makes Jamstack like the simpler option? And my dogs are going crazy right now. Sorry about that. So yeah, Ovinam. What is it you feel makes Jamstack the simpler option for developers as opposed to like people who criticize it for as full of dependencies and third party services and so on?
Hello?
Yes.
I
Are
think
you unable to hear me?
Yeah,
Obina?
I wasn't hearing you, so I just started hearing you right now. What's up?
Oh, okay. I'll start over. So I was saying
Oh,
a
my
lot
bad.
of what you said resonated with me, but in and I think it was great. So the question I had is that Jamstack is typically criticized as being almost too complex, and dog's going crazy. Um, like
Sorry
so,
about
you
that.
have all these dependencies and third-party services and so on. Like, what is it about Jamstack that you feel makes it simpler?
Well, for me, it's the way of like building. So before like the problem is usually the problem like I've encountered in my own career path is like getting started is really hard. So like trying to like build the complex stuff is it's getting started is really hard. But like if you build like with a Jamstacky approach, like you're focused on more things that fit into your skill set. For me, it's like being a front end developer and being able to just focus on like the front end, and then as I grow or as my problem increases, I get to like add in more stuff.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. You've, in a way, I kind of took the message as being almost like democratizing full stack development in a way that because it allows a front end developer suddenly to take over pieces that typically you'd have back end developers and database administrators and so on and so forth that are all handled now by services. Am I right?
Yeah. So it kind of just helps, gives like the front end developer more like skills. The angle I'm going for is like it kind of just gives you more more autonomy to like do more stuff.
And so, taking on your message and I'm going to ask your opinion here. This is maybe like, I don't mean to get you in trouble, but like, so one of the things that I'm curious about is, do you look at this in the same way in terms of like when you're developing a site, do I go say with like a full solution with React or Angular or whatever versus like a simple 11 that doesn't necessarily have a framework? And I know you work for Gatsby, so I mean obviously you have an opinion on this, but but do you think that relates to like your decision as to whether you choose something that's framework based or not?
Well, sometimes when I'm trying to like build for like stuff, I usually advise that you think of, it's mostly directed to the problem. So for example, if you're trying to work on a site for like a company that has like different sources of like data, and like they're trying to like add a shopping site, add a shopping thingy to this, and add like a lot of like different places where they store their contents, then I mean, I would say, okay, maybe pick like a server-side rendered framework that like helps you to do this, right? If you're looking to like just maybe start off a simple like application, or start up like a simple blog with not so much server-side like rendering choices, maybe pick like somewhat. So basically, the thing is like I never really point out to say, oh, go use this because I like this. It's kind of like think of the problem and then it will solve it. You would see like things that frameworks or services that work better for you.
Yeah, I think that's great. Like it's good not to be. I always say like not don't be religious about your solutions, right? Like pick
Yeah.
based on the appropriate tools for the job you're getting done.
Exactly.
So Linus has a question: how should modern web developers call themselves? Front end developer, full stack developer, Jamstack developer?
Huh.
What's your
You call
opinion?
you call yourself the avatar.
yeah. He said like, so we call ourselves Superman. I have my own strong opinions on full stack developer. It's a term I tend not to use, but
Yeah. I mean,
I
there,
probably
there
should.
was a time when like everyone is like, "Ah, I want to be a full stack developer, so I need to learn all of these things so I can go learn all of those things." But now
Mhm.
it's like I'm comfortable with what I'm comfortable with, and I can build with what I can build with.
Yeah, and I think that like even as you kind of note, the term front end developer at this point encompasses so much
Kind
that
of
isn't
shaky.
front
Yeah.
end. So I mean, full stack always kind of I think sets this expectation that you have to know everything, and you'll see like what do you need? You'll see posts about what do you need to know to be a full stack developer, and it's like yeah, you need to know SQL
Yeah.
Server, and
But
you need to know Angular and React, and and it's
yeah.
like oh my god, the list is ridiculous. Nobody knows all that stuff, right?
But now you see that like those kind of lists rarely ever like surface anymore. Because like it's like who really is a front end developer, right?
Yeah, exactly. So one more thing I wanted to ask you about. So one of the technologies you kind of listed on something that we should learn, and something I have a lot of curiosity about. Obviously, it relates to my work at Stepson. But like, so you mentioned GraphQL. Why is it you think that like developers should get out there and learn more about GraphQL?
So the story of like my own GraphQL experience was that like I first of all got in and like I don't know what this is because I mean everyone is so used to some specific part of doing things and now you're telling me, oh, look at this nice way of building stuff that doesn't cost you like overfetching or underfetching and really just specifies things clearly. So I think that people should like learn GraphQL because like it gives you like a path to like building for different types of the most basic question in my mind right now is like building for different types of devices. So for example, if you're trying to like get data from the same source but then really just pass them into like different devices, you don't want to like get, so for example, if you had to traditionally, if you're going to like say query for like an author and you want to get like a list of like books is written and all of those things, you'd have to get like all the authors and then find like all the books and then all of those things. But with GraphQL, like it gives you more, it gives the front end a more specific way of like saying this is what I want and I'm going to get this particular thing. So it kind of gives you like, again, I'm sorry, but like I reference a lot of cartoons, so like it gives you like this Spider-Man way of like just getting a particular thing that you want, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I love how you relate everything to a superhero of some sort, right? Or cartoon. Yeah, I always think of it in terms of you get everything you need, right, from a
Exactly.
GraphQL, but you only get the things you need. So you get only what you
Hmm.
need, but everything you need. So
Yeah.
it not too much, but not never too little. Okay, so a
Never
couple
too.
more quick questions from the audience. Assuming a Jamstack solution is preferred, what's the best use case for Gatsby versus 11 or Jekyll? Obviously, you have an opinion on Gatsby, so I don't know if you have much experience with
Yeah.
11 or Jekyll. So yeah, what do you think? What
So
would be your case for Gatsby over
so I
11?
have So I have like tried to build stuff with 11T, but I haven't never used like Jekyll, so I can't really have an opinion on it. I did try to like, so a part of my website, my resume is on 11T is hosted like on a subdomain, but an 11T site. I really like the experience, like just using it for the purpose of just building out a page for my what's it called, for my resume. But the major part of my site is built on like Gatsby. The reason I picked Gatsby for my site isn't because I work for Gatsby, but like because like I had to like pull in like my talks from like Contentful and then use like I basically use my site as a sandbox to like just see how much can I stress this site to see if I pull in different things from different places, when is it going to break? When is it going to be load so slow? When is the performance going to go down? But seeing as that is my website is still like on 100 for like every other thing except like accessibility is like a 97 because like I need to like fix some stuff that's really just it's just me not paying attention. But then yeah, I wouldn't really put it as a, I never really try to put things as this versus this. It's more always like focus on like the use case and what you're trying to do. Like my site is built on this because I try to pull in all of these things and then I said, okay, I don't want to build this resume part with Gatsby, but then my site is built on Gatsby and 11T. So versus
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's we always like, I think the posts you see a lot in the tech community are, X versus Y kind of posts, and I think they get a lot of clicks and stuff, but it's not always the
it's kind
most.
of like I always ask, why can't we all just get along? Like we're all just trying to do the same thing, right? Trying to make the interwebs a better place.
Yeah, exactly. And on that note, Pat asks, so much of our job and job hunting is defined by the tools we use to complete tasks. So, how do you suggest we reframe that around solving problems?
Hmm.
So, I
So
think what he's saying is basically like, we tend to focus on as developers are like, you know on the tool list of tools as opposed to what they're doing, right?
Well, yeah. It's kind of so in my experience, like learning to like code, like the first thing I learned was like JavaScript. So the way I view like frameworks and like all of these things is it's JavaScript, but like maybe a higher abstraction of JavaScript, right? And then we kind of like in the industry kind of focuses on, okay, can you write Angular this, or can you write React, or can you write this? But it's kind of like, I feel like if you're comfortable enough with JavaScript, or not even like so comfortable, but then you have the ability to like reach into like these other documentations. They are just like the way I view them is like it's a high abstraction of JavaScript. So like if you are able to just follow documentation, ask a few questions, don't be afraid to say, oh, I don't know this, but here's what I know, and this is what I'm willing to like go do. Right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like just, I mean, I know that there's a lot of like titles attached to things and all of those things. But what you know, just if you have the tools of like what you know, it's kind of like um having like your stone and your rock, and you can make fire, right? And
Yeah.
then you can also just have a stone and a rock, so yeah.
Absolutely. And I found in my own experience over the years is defining jobs by what technology specifically, like, often doesn't get you the best person for the job. It gets you, it's I can teach somebody, especially if they know how to program, I could teach you a new programming language, but there's lots of other skills beyond just a programming language or even a specific Jamstack tool, right? It's easy to teach those new skills. So Brian asks, what's a good starting point for folks to learn GraphQL?
So for me, like my experience with GraphQL, like I said, I came into them like, oh, what's going on here, and I ran away. But then when I got into like writing, building stuff with Gatsby, and this was like way before I even started working for Gatsby. I actually learned GraphQL using a Gatsby perspective, and then moved over to um what's it called, howtographql.com, which is a very good platform to like learn GraphQL. I promise you. But
Yeah.
but then I wouldn't say like, because being comfortable with GraphQL in a Gatsby perspective actually helped me understand what queries were doing. And maybe when I moved over to like howtographql.com, it was kind of like, okay, these are what mutations are, these are what subscriptions are, this is how this fits into this is what a query is, this is what a union is, like. So it's kind of my advice would be, if you get started with like Gatsby and see how GraphQL works in a query, just getting data perspective, then
Mhm.
move over to like the complex stuff of like, okay, this is how mutations are, this is how like those things are. But good
Yeah.
starting points would probably be my own take would probably be Gatsby and how to graphql.com.
Yeah, I've used howtographql.com as well. It's excellent. And I think, Gatsby, or even there's any tools that allow you to actually access GraphQL, because it tends to be like, it actually gives you that code hinting. Basically, it tells you what it can do. That's one of the things that's amazing about GraphQL. It's like, okay, here's everything all the queries you can do, and then it hints me
Yeah,
like, okay, here's the fields I can ask, and here are the,
with
and so on.
graphical,
Yeah, and graphical.
GraphQL is
Yeah,
also a very good tool.
exactly. So,
Like
okay,
yeah,
yeah. Go
helps a
ahead.
lot.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say the interfaces that are even built for GraphQL. Like, so most people think you need to get these whole queries in your head and know how you can, write out the queries like some hacker or something. But like, no, it's there's a tool that really just generates these queries for you. So like, you don't have to
Exactly.
like have all the answers. So yeah,
Yes, exactly. Like, whenever I'm working with a new REST API, I'm sitting there like, okay, what are the different calls I can make? I'm digging
yeah,
through like API docs and stuff like that. And okay, what's the different calls I can make? And then I'm like exploring, like, okay, what's the result going to be? Like, because, you never know what you're going to get. And it's just, you spend a lot of time doing that. Whereas GraphQL, it's like, okay, it's all hinted for me.
it's
And then
all
the
there.
result
It's like
looks,
this.
yeah. And the result looks exactly like what I queried. So,
Exactly, because and you can even test your queries before you put them in your application to see what
yeah.
they return.
Exactly.
Awesome.